When my son's wife told me I needed to leave my own home by morning, I smiled instead of crying. 47 years I'd lived in that house, raised my children there, buried my husband, and planted every rosebush in the garden. The home where I'd nursed my son through childhood fevers was suddenly no longer mine, according to her. I remember how the kitchen light cast shadows across her determined face as she delivered her verdict. What she didn't know then was that a lifetime of quiet resilience had taught me when to bend and when to stand my ground. I'm Margaret, Maggie to those who've known me longest. I turned 73 last spring, though most days I still feel like the same girl who married Thomas right out of high school. We bought our little 2-bedroom house on Maple Street when we were barely 20, scraping together every penny for the down payment. Tom would joke that we had more dreams than furniture back then. We raised our only son, James, in that home. The living room still has the height marks penciled on the doorframe, tracking his growth from a toddler to the day he left for college. After Tom passed away 8 years ago, that house became even more precious, each creaking floorboard and faded wallpaper pattern holding memories of our life together. When James married Rebecca 5 years ago, I was overjoyed. She was bright, ambitious, everything I'd hoped my son would find. They lived across town in a modern apartment with sleek furniture and minimal decor, the opposite of my cluttered, lived-in home. I respected their space, visiting only when invited, which grew increasingly rare as months passed. Last year, James lost his job at the marketing firm. The timing couldn't have been worse. Rebecca was 6 months pregnant with their first child, my first grandchild. They were struggling to make rent, and I had a house with an empty spare bedroom. "It'll just be temporary, Mom," James assured me, "until we get back on our feet." I cleared out Tom's old office, painted it a soft yellow, and set up the crib that once held James. Having them move in brought life back into these quiet rooms, morning coffee with my son, helping Rebecca prepare the nursery. I thought we were building something beautiful together. 3 months after little Emma was born, I began to notice the shift. It started with small things, comments about how I loaded the dishwasher incorrectly, or sighs when I'd sing the old lullabies to Emma. Rebecca would rearrange furniture while I was out gardening, explaining that the new layout was more functional. My collection of porcelain birds, souvenirs from trips Tom and I had taken, disappeared from the mantel, replaced by minimalist candle holders. "We just want to make the space work better for everyone," James explained when I mentioned it, not quite meeting my eyes. One evening, I was rocking Emma to sleep, humming softly as her tiny fingers curled around mine. "I can take her," Rebecca said from the doorway, voice tight. "We're trying to establish a sleep schedule." I handed my granddaughter over, noting how Rebecca immediately shifted her to a different position than the one I'd used. "You know, my mother always said babies need to be held close to feel secure," I offered gently. Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, the parenting books we follow suggest otherwise." Meals became silent affairs. If I cooked, Rebecca would mention Emma's future allergies might develop from certain ingredients. If I didn't cook, there were comments about contributing to the household. James grew quieter, caught between his wife and his mother, choosing peace over speaking up. I began spending more time in my bedroom or the garden, trying to make myself smaller in my own home. One afternoon, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "We can't keep living like this," Rebecca whispered. "Your mother's everywhere. We have no space of our own." "What do you suggest?" James asked. "It's her house, Becca." "For now," she replied, "but you're her only child. Eventually, this place will be yours anyway. We could offer to buy her out, help her find a nice retirement community." The word retirement community echoed in my mind for days. I'd helped my own mother move into one years ago, watched her wither away, surrounded by beige walls instead of memories. I'd promised myself then that I would age in place, in the home Tom and I had built together. That evening at dinner, I mentioned wanting to repaint the living room, perhaps the soft blue Tom and I had always loved. Actually, Rebecca said, exchanging glances with James, we've been thinking about making some bigger changes around here. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything came to a head. I'd spent the morning at my weekly bridge game with friends, returning home with a fresh loaf of sourdough from the bakery downtown. The house was oddly quiet when I entered. No crying baby, no murmur of Rebecca's constant phone calls. In the living room, I found suitcases. My suitcases, filled with my clothes, folded neatly. On top sat photo albums and the small jewelry box containing my wedding ring and Tom's watch. "Mom." James stood in the doorway, Rebecca behind him holding Emma. "We need to talk." I set down the bread on a side table, my hands suddenly unsteady. "What's happening here?" "We found a place." Rebecca stepped forward. "Sunshine Gardens. It's a beautiful retirement community just 20 minutes away." "They have activities, social events," James added quickly. "You'd never be alone." I looked at my son, the little boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager who'd helped me care for Tom during his final days. "And if I don't want to go?" Rebecca shifted Emma to her other hip. "We've already put down a deposit. They have an opening now, but it won't last. You need to be out by tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" The word felt hollow. "It's for the best, Mom." James wouldn't meet my eyes. "The stairs here are getting dangerous for someone your age. At Sunshine Gardens, everything's on one level." "I see." I steadied myself against the wall. "And this is my home, James. The home your father and I paid off 30 years ago." "We know that, Maggie." Rebecca's voice took on the tone one uses with children. "And we're prepared to compensate you fairly for it. The money, plus your Social Security, will more than cover Sunshine Gardens." I looked around the room, at the walls where our family photos once hung, now replaced by Rebecca's abstract prints, at the corner where Tom's reading chair had been, now occupied by a modern exercise bike, at the window where I'd watched 47 seasons change. "I need some air," I said finally, "and time to think." They exchanged victorious glances, mistaking my calm for acceptance. "Of course," Rebecca said. "Take all the time you need. We'll finish packing your essentials." I walked to the park 3 blocks away, the same park where James had played as a child. Sitting on a bench overlooking the duck pond, I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. First to Martin, my late husband's attorney and our friend for decades, then to Sally, who'd been my locksmith when I lost my keys last winter. "Are you sure about this, Maggie?" Martin asked after I explained the situation. "There are other ways to handle family disputes." "I'm sure, Martin," I replied, watching a mother duck guide her ducklings across the water. "I won't be pushed out of my own home without due process. The deed is in my name alone. Tom made sure of that." I returned home as the afternoon light was fading. Rebecca was feeding Emma in the nursery while James continued emptying my dresser drawers. "I've decided to spend the night at my friend Carol's," I told them, voice steady. "Give me some space to adjust to this change." The relief on their faces was unmistakable. "That's probably for the best," Rebecca nodded. "A clean break will make the transition easier." I packed an overnight bag, kissed my sleeping granddaughter's forehead, and left without fanfare. Instead of going to Carol's, I parked down the block, watching as James and Rebecca left for dinner 2 hours later, presumably celebrating their successful coup. Sally arrived at 7:30, her locksmith van parked behind my car. "Awful situation, Maggie," she said as she changed every lock in the house. "My sister went through something similar with her son-in-law." By 9 o'clock, new keys were in my hand, and Martin had emailed a formal notice for me to give James and Rebecca, asserting my legal ownership and giving them 30 days to find new accommodations. Standard tenant eviction procedure, though they weren't even paying rent. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the darkened living room, waiting. At 10:15, headlights swept across the front window. I heard the key in the lock, then confused jiggling when it wouldn't turn. The doorbell rang, then again, more insistently. Finally, knocking. I opened the door, standing straight in the frame of my own home. Mom? James looked confused. The key isn't working. No, I agreed, handing him the envelope from Martin. It isn't. Here's the legal notice explaining that you have 30 days to find a new place to live. I'd start looking tomorrow. Rebecca pushed forward. You can't do this. We have a baby. And I have a home, I replied calmly. One that I'm not leaving until I decide it's time. You're welcome to stay for the next month while you look for alternatives. The nursery remains untouched for Emma's comfort. That night was the beginning of the hardest month of my relationship with my son. There were tears, accusations, slammed doors, and painful silence. Rebecca moved with Emma to her parents' house the very next day, but James stayed, sleeping on the couch, barely speaking to me. One evening, I found him sitting in the backyard, looking at the treehouse his father had built him decades ago. I don't understand how we got here, he said without turning around. How did we go from being family to this? I sat beside him on the old garden bench. We forgot to respect each other, I think. You forgot that I'm still capable, still my own person. And maybe I forgot that you need to make your own path, even if it's different from what I'd choose. 3 weeks later, they found an apartment closer to Rebecca's work. The day they moved out, I helped carry Emma's things to the car. You're welcome to visit, I told James. This home has always been open to you. He nodded, not quite ready to bridge the gap between us, but no longer burning with resentment. It's been 6 months now. James brings Emma over every other Saturday. Just the two of them at first, but last week Rebecca came too. We're learning new boundaries, new ways to be family without living on top of one another. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about winning. It's about creating the space where everyone can eventually stand together with dignity and respect. My home remains my sanctuary, but its doors are never locked to love.